In this episode, we talk about Maharashtra's Marathwada region, where record-breaking rainfall has turned one of India's most drought-prone areas into a flood zone. We also take a quick look at the developments in Kerala, where the ED has raided the homes and offices of Malayalam film stars as part of a probe into alleged luxury car smuggling violations. But we begin today by discussing the recent attack on Chief Justice of India, BR Gavai. Hi, I'm Ichha Sharma, and you're listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. On Monday morning, during a Supreme Court proceeding, a 71-year-old advocate allegedly threw a shoe at the Chief Justice Gavai. The man, identified as Rakesh Kishore, told the police he was upset over the CJI's recent remarks about the Khajuraho temple complex in Madhya Pradesh. In response, Prime Minister Narendra Modi called the act utterly condemnable, saying it had angered every Indian, and praised the CJI for the calm he showed during the incident. Opposition leaders also condemned the act, with Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge saying it reflected the hate, fanaticism, and bigotry engulfing society. To talk about the concerns this incident has raised and the fault lines it reveals, my colleague Shashank Bhargava speaks to the Indian Express's national legal editor, Apurva Viswanath.
Apurva, let's lay out this incident for our listeners. Talk about who this man was and what do we know about what prompted him to do this?
So what we know is he's a 71-year-old lawyer who apparently thought he was a foot soldier of Sanatan Dharma, and he uttered something to the effect of Sanatan Dharma ka apman nahi sahenge. And what I would assume was a crowded courtroom on a Monday morning, flung a shoe at the judge's podium. He was, by his own admission, aiming for the Chief Justice. Now, more than that, what he intended to do or what his name is or anything, what is important is what kind of happened before this incident on Monday, right? For the last few weeks, there was intense criticism in social media by a lot of right-wing handles where some comments Justice Gavai made in court were criticized, and it didn't just stop at criticism. The attempt to portray him as someone who is anti-Hindu was happening. In fact, these were not just stray conversations on Twitter, but something that even was brought to the notice of the Chief Justice, who said that that was never his intention and that's not how he intended it to be.
Right, and here what you're referring to are the remarks that he made during a recent hearing regarding the Khajuraho temple complex in Madhya Pradesh. Talk about what this hearing was about and what had Justice Gavai said.
Yeah, so this was a case where a lawyer who happens to be a standing counsel of the Uttar Pradesh government, Vishnu Shankar Jain, and you would have heard of this lawyer a lot of times in these temple-related cases, whether it is Gyanvapi in Banaras or Mathura or, So Vishnu Shankar Jain brought a plea seeking the court's intervention in restoring a desecrated idol of Vishnu in the Khajuraho temple. Even for a person who is not well-versed with the law, you can understand how this is not the court's remit, that the court should not be directing the installation of a new idol. So the court was inclined to dismiss the case. And while dismissing the case, the lawyer tries to push back, the judge says something, and this is what happens in a courtroom. So in that conversation, Justice Gavai did say that, you should go and pray to your deity. Maybe that's how you will get a new idol there. So these stray comments were picked up, and the screen grab or the recording of what was happening in court was on social media and was essentially made out to seem like Justice Gavai was insulting Hindu gods or insulting Vishnu here. It was simply a case where the court is dismissing a plea which is not the judiciary's remit. But the social media criticism went on for a while. And it seems like this lawyer who caused this charade in court on Monday is saying that it is for that reason that he wants to. But there is a lot of subtext here. We have the second only Dalit Chief Justice of India. And even painting the Chief Justice as somebody who is taking a religious side is a problematic thing. In interviews before he took office, Justice Gavai has candidly said that he is a Buddhist. His family's association with Ambedkarite principles are not a secret. In fact, his father was very close to Dr. Ambedkar himself, and the family has very close ties to Diksha Bhumi in Nagpur. And to take that and say because he is a Buddhist, he is against Hindu principles. So all of this criticism against a particular person's religious ideology, right? Would it be different if a Hindu judge said this? Or would it be different if a Tilak sporting judge said this, for example? Or would it be different if a Muslim judge said it, for example? But to characterize judicial actions or what was being said in court as something so cynical, this is all very new to the judiciary that way, and in continuation of that, what happened in court on Monday is no surprise.
And also, when this man did this, how did Justice Gavai react to that?
I mean, in fact, Justice Gavai had a very, very calm reaction to what happened in court. He just simply said, I'm not distracted by all this, and asked the lawyers who were arguing before him to continue their case. He even refused to press charges against this man. But having said that, it's not just this one man and what he did in court that day, right? This whole conversation about the judiciary, and increasingly when you have high stakes political issues, which our politics is now full of just religious issues. These things spill over to a courtroom, and that just takes center stage over what should actually be happening in a court.
And although Justice Gavai didn't take any action against the man, can't the police do something about this? Can't they take action against him?
Yeah, so in fact, the provision that would be applied here is Section 133 of the Bharati Nyaya Sanhita, which is assault or use of criminal force to attack someone's dignity with an intent to lower their dignity, which is what happened in court. Unfortunately, that provision is both cognizable and bailable, which means that it needs a complaint from the person involved. And then even after the complaint, this is a bailable offense, which means even at the police station level, he can, pay a bond of surety or whatever and go home. But the fact that Justice Gavai chose to not even press charges or respond to it shows that that's how the institution looks at it, that this is a distraction. This is a distraction from what should be happening in a courtroom. But the other provision, of course, is the Scheduled Caste, Scheduled Tribes Atrocities Act, which again is a cognizable offense, which needs a formal complaint. But the Registrar of the Supreme Court was instructed by the Chief Justice to not press charges.
And you mentioned how there is a lot of subtext here, especially when we look at the initial case involving the Khajuraho temple and Justice Gavai being only the second Dalit Chief Justice we've had. Can you talk about just the fault lines this incident reveals?
So yeah, for the last few years, we've been seeing the result of what happens when complete political battles are fought in courtrooms. Because there is government with a strong majority, the opposition is often outnumbered in the parliament, and they look at the court as a venue for this opposition or a venue for fighting against the government in that sense. And of course, it's not just that, right? Like all our politics are reflected in cases and often culminating into large constitutional mandates. Say the Ayodhya Ram Janmabhoomi case, or now what you're seeing, the flurry of Gyan Vapi to Triple Talaq. The last few years, religious, political, high stakes has been a commonplace in our courtrooms. And very personality-centric criticism is also becoming common. Someone's religious identity, someone's past utterances in court, all of this is being openly talked about, which was not so common earlier. So, and add to that the increased social media criticism and also the fact that our courts have gone live. Earlier, it used to be a group of journalists in court who would filter the court proceedings and sort of take the chaos of the courtroom and distill it into a newspaper article or something that informs the public. That's no longer the case. Anyone can log in and screen grabs, recordings, short clips, they all go viral. And we've talked about this earlier, there is a certain Socratic method that happens in court where a lawyer is being criticized by a judge or is being chided. All of this can very easily be taken out of context. In fact, on Tuesday, Justice Gavai himself shared an incident that apparently happened in court where one of the judges, his colleagues, was telling a lawyer the importance of soft skills and said you have to appeal to the judge, right? And that was reported on some website as the judge saying that the judge's ego is very fragile and the lawyer has to kind of take care of that, But that's not at all what was intended. And of course, our courtrooms are quite, and the language used there is also quite esoteric. It takes people who are familiar with the system, makes it easier for them to understand than everybody else. So all of this culminating, that's perhaps the subtext of this whole issue.
And next we turn to Maharashtra, where the state's drought belt this year has been hit by the opposite extreme. In the second half of September, Marathwada's 8 districts, historically drought-prone and located in rain-shadow tracts, witnessed intense short-duration cloudbursts that triggered severe flooding that residents and administrators describe as unprecedented.
It's not like any other calamity. This is really unprecedented.
This is Girish Kuber, the editor of the Marathi daily Loksatta, who recently spoke to the Indian Express's Shubhangi Khapre about this issue. In this segment, we present to you that conversation. And here's Girish again.
4 times volume of rain this last small areas of Marathwada. And Marathwada, the dilemma is that it's a double whammy. Because on the one hand, Marathwada itself was battered by rains, bruised by rains badly. And on the other side, the North Maharashtra, which has rivers that stage water to Marathwada, they also received huge rains. So what people are supposed to do?
Now, Girish, Union Home Minister Amit Shah was in Mumbai on October 5th. And he also was present at Ahilyanagar, the former Ahmednagar district. And he was for a function which was, unveiling the statue of Basai Vikhe Patil and Dr. Vittal Rao Vikhe Patil. Both pioneers, legends in cooperative sector who were always devoted for the cause of the farmers and agriculture sector. So what was minimum one expected from Amit Shah there?
Well, the first thing Maharashtra was expecting kind of a substantial financial assistance for this is unseen. Nobody could have thought of it, the intensity of the rain, So there should have been something coming in from the center. It's not that center has not helped states, Like for example, 2021 cyclone in Gujarat. PM immediately toured the state and announced 1,000 crore relief for package. Bridge collapse in small village in Gujarat recently was considered as a national calamity. It was granted assistance. There was one more instance, I think that was another bridge collapse recently in Vadodara. Again, some 2 lakh per victim assistance from the central kitty was announced. So something similar, it is not unfair to expect from the center, when the magnitude of the calamity, it's unbelievable, But unfortunately, nothing has come so far. And that doesn't say good about the center-state relationship, And if one wants to portray as non-partisan, this thing will not be of any help in that direction,
Because these are unseasonal rains. One expects return rains are always very erratic. And we have seen it in the past. But Girish, it's a very serious issue. When we're talking about this kind of floods in Marathwada region, this is not something to do only with Maharashtra. This should be the national issue. Because this somewhere also talks about the climatic challenges.
Correct.
And not only for Maharashtra, for the entire country in that sense. But what is appalling is why the center is not taking it that seriously.
See, it's not only that center is not announcing any special assistance. What is actually should be irritating Maharashtrians is about center's stance over the issue, First, Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis called on Prime Minister to appraise him about the situation. Then we had Home Minister himself in Maharashtra. The message is from both of them is the same. You initiate the proposal, send us a proposal, we will look at it and kind of stuff. It sounds so bureaucratic. And this is actually not fair, because kind of damage Marathwada has witnessed is unprecedented. It's just not the crops in thousands and thousands of acres of land has been completely wiped out or land was submerged for weeks, the sugarcane, corn, soya bean, it's complete disaster. But more than that is the erosion of soil, That was not seen anywhere in Maharashtra. Rivers changed their course and entire agri land was washed out, So what are you going to do with that? You may give here and there some amount, but that damage is long lasting. And in the current situation, current frame of rules and regulation, there is nothing that can measure the damage of such magnitude, and especially if soil erosion has happened, Another case we can point out is the Jersey cows, It costs 1,50,000 or so per cow, And some farmers have lost 10, 15, 20 of their cows and they just washed away. How are you going to help them? So in this case, it should have been actually, center should have been seen as helping Maharashtra, Even from the optics point of view, it mattered a lot. But that hasn't happened, unfortunately.
That's true because if I remember on September 25th, 26th, I think, Devendra Fadnavis, Chief Minister, met Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
Yeah.
And he held at least 1 hour long meeting.
Yeah.
Which means he has briefed him everything. Now the question here is, what are you waiting for? I mean, the entire agricultural land is submerged in floods. Yeah. Even now, there is water which is waist high. I mean, that kind of water is still there in the fields. And except for paddy, no other crops require that kind of water. So what kind of experts you're waiting for to give you another report, or what kind of central team you want to assess it, even if that's a part of process? You have just mentioned that NDRF norms will be relaxed. The drone images will be accounted for. Then how much time does it take? It's that almost 15 days now.
Yeah, that's exactly the issue, People don't have anything to eat. I mean, villages after villages are submerged. The animal husbandry department is also struggling to handle that issue, So it should have been better from the center, I mean, the large-heartedness which is normally goes to shown in case of Gujarat, a part of it at least was expected in Maharashtra.
Because from what we gather, I mean, the kind of action that we see on the ground, the state government has initiated something like 10,000 rupees immediate help to the flood-hit families. They have also talked about, the cabinet has approved 2,500 crore last week, and they have assured everything, and the centers also assured everything. The point here is, Girish, I was talking to some of the agri experts in Marathwada region, and what they are concerned about is they're saying it's not a question of loan waiver, because loan waiver and all will come a year later. That's not the issue. The issue is there are no fields left now. So the farmers, even if he kind of, with not this standing crop, Kharif is a main standing crop, even if that is washed out, the point is when the rain subsides, when he gets back to the fields, there's nothing to do. I mean, there's no field.
Sand,
and to rebuild the whole thing, the soil, the nutrients and all that, I mean, that takes several years because it's not something that happens within a year.
The seriousness of the issue, I don't think we can be charitable in analyzing the center's attitude towards Maharashtra, Unfortunately, it has become very fashionable. It's very vote catcher when it comes to infra. You talk about railways, bridges and airports and then that very glitzy stuff, But this is also infra. It's equally important in infra, But there is no way, there was no method to mitigate those damages over the years, Number one. Number two, and that's the sad part, it has a political dimension. Now everyone from the treasury benches is asking opposition not to politicize the national disaster, But the issue is what you were doing when you were in opposition. So it's unfortunately at the cost of someone else, but it's payback time for the current opposition now. It was the same opposition leader then who was seeking special relief from the center, which the government then failed to do it. Now that opposition leader happens to be the Chief Minister of Maharashtra. And now the Chief Minister then will obviously bring out those issues now. And this is the problem, And once you stoop to that level, now the demand was made then about how to categorize this such kind of high rain losses, And now the same person says now there is nothing like we can do with that kind of a financial package, So this dichotomy is another aspect to it, which is in the long run, which eventually hit the farmers and the population.
I think it took them just 5 minutes to declare Ladki Bahin Yojana because it was related to electoral politics. But now when it comes to the agri issue, the farmers, and also I think in Marathwada there's a lack of leadership also, I think. Because had this been maybe, I don't know, in Vidarbha, would they take the same approach? Or because Western Maharashtra were economically prosperous, and then would they be the same?
That's why the regional parties at some point matter, because so-called national parties have failed in challenging their central leadership. That has been the case as far as Maharashtra is concerned. That's the history. See, when you talked about Ladki Bahin, we are talking about 1,500. But look at Bihar. I mean, every woman in Bihar, she's going to get 10,000 rupees in her account.
It's absurd.
For what? For what? Was it planned? Was it kind of a national assistance for something unfortunate that has happened to Bihar? Nothing. So this is the problem, and there exactly Maharashtra suffers a lot. Maharashtra, it may be BJP, it may be Congress, they have failed in taking Maharashtra's issues to the center, And same thing, unfortunately, that has happened. And at this time, when Maharashtra was expecting substantial assistance from the center, the state level politicians have failed the state.
So what is the reason? I mean, is it because Maharashtra is paying the price because of its economic prosperity, or because of its leadership the quote-unquote tag, which has been there for 60s, that, it's one of the most, self-reliant state, and it can raise its own finances.
Historically, Marathwada had a very powerful leadership, Shankarrao Chavan, his son Ashok Chavan, Vilasrao Deshmukh. Despite that, Maharashtra, this kind of leadership, Marathwada has always suffered, because it is not economically strong, nobody made any effort, unlike Western Maharashtra. There are powerful leaders from Western Maharashtra and equally powerful region also. Marathwada, that's complete disconnect between very rich leaders and the poor countryside. And that hasn't changed, and it is getting reflected even in this crisis also, unfortunately. And besides this issue, look at the number of landless laborers working in other regions. Almost 90% of them come from Marathwada. This is the sad story about Marathwada, But that's been the case, and this was perfect, I will not say opportunity, but this was the moment Marathwada wanted better deal from the center and the state. Unfortunately, again, Marathwada is left high and dry, despite such kind of huge deluge, and no one is seen coming forward to help the poor farmer.
And in the end, we take a look at the Enforcement Directorate raiding the homes and offices of Malayalam film stars. Yesterday, the ED conducted searches at the residences and offices of Malayalam actors Mammootty, his son Dulquer Salmaan, and Prithviraj Sukumaran in connection with an alleged luxury car smuggling and foreign exchange violation case. As reported by the Indian Express's Arun Janardhanan, the raids, which took place across 17 locations in Kerala and Tamil Nadu, including Kochi, Coimbatore and Chennai, were carried out under the 1999 Foreign Exchange Management Act, or FEMA. The ED has alleged that a Coimbatore-based network had smuggled luxury vehicles such as Toyota Land Cruisers, Land Rover Defenders and Maseratis into India using forged documents and illegal foreign exchange transactions routed through Hawala channels. According to officials, the network obtained fraudulent regional transport office registrations from states such as Arunachal Pradesh and Himachal Pradesh by using counterfeit papers purporting to be from the Indian Army, the US Embassy, and the Ministry of External Affairs. These vehicles were allegedly sold at undervalued rates to high net worth buyers, including film personalities. Janardhanan further reports that the raids came a day after Dulquer Salmaan filed a petition in the Kerala High Court challenging the Customs Department over the seizure of his Land Rover Defender. During the hearing, Justice Ziad Rahman questioned customs officials about the evidence for seizure and directed them to process Dulquer's request for provisional release of the vehicle. Dulquer maintained that he had purchased the vehicle in good faith 5 years earlier with proper bank payments and documents showing clearance and delivery from the original importer, the International Committee of the Red Cross in New Delhi. According to the ED statement, the preliminary findings revealed violations of FEMA related to unauthorized foreign exchange dealings. It said the ongoing investigation aimed to trace the money trail, identify the beneficiary network, and verify foreign exchange movements connected to the vehicle imports. Officials said the inclusion of Mammootty's family reflected the wider scope of the probe rather than individual targeting. You were listening to 3 Things by The Indian Express. Today's show was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar and produced by Shashank, Bhargava and me, Ichha Sharma. If you like the show, do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast. You can also recommend it to someone you think may like it, with a friend or in your family. This is the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Podcast or write to us at podcast@indianexpress.com.